It's not the move that we were waiting for, but it happened right now. This is gonna be fun, Lance. We're gonna talk about some stuff that just went down. But Lance Brozdowski here from the winter meetings, man. How's it going over there in Dallas?
It's good, man. Yeah, I'm in the hotel. I don't know if you can see behind me. No, that's just a giant elephant. There's people around here though, I swear. This
That's what
hotel
we
is weird.
all
E-
want.
each hotel at these things has like such a weird personality to it. Like Nashville is like this maze labyrinth jungle. This one is like a little more condensed, but there's
Okay.
like certain ballrooms that are like a mile walk away. It doesn't make any sense. None of these places ever make any sense. That's the reality of it.
Well, hey, the winter meetings is where you and I met this last year
I
in
know,
Nashville.
yeah, yeah.
I was bummed I couldn't join you this year, but we're still in Hawaii, so I'm not that bummed.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a little jealous, just a little bit jealous.
just a little. Listen, not the deal that we were hoping for. In fact, I think a lot of Cubs fans were kind of hoping, including yourself, that the White Sox would be doing a deal with the Cubs for Garrett Crochet. But right before we went live here, from Julian Mack on Twitter, apparently he is going to the Red Sox. So we've got 10 years later, another basically Chris Sale deal from the White Sox to the Red Sox. So yeah, man. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about Kyle Tucker, but that's one day after Max Fried signs with the Yankees, you were kind of telling me it looks like the Red Sox were kind of going after both those guys, huh?
Yeah, I mean, my read was that the Red Sox were actually really close to the Yankees' offer on Fried, and then I just thought they would pivot to Burns, but I wonder if that dollar figure is just too high for them. Um, so now I don't know where Burns goes, right? Like Burns, I think the leading candidate there is probably the Giants, but I don't know if any other team, maybe the Blue Jays, Giants and Blue Jays, the only teams that maybe have around 300 million that they're willing to give out to
Yeah.
either of those guys. Um, but yeah, the Crochet trade's nuts. Like at least he stays in the AL, which is really nice. But I really liked him. Like I thought the Cubs matched up really well from the prospects perspective. I thought there was really only like three teams that could do it. I was kind of skeptical the Phillies would actually fire off their only two position prospects that kind of matter. I mean, the Cubs, the Orioles, and the Red Sox were the three teams that I thought made the most sense. They just have surplus of these position playing prospects, which is exactly what the White Sox need. So we'll see. I don't know if we know the return yet, but I imagine it's pretty hefty.
Well, it looks like so. Bob Nightingale just said the White Sox are receiving four minor league players from the Red Sox, including catcher Kyle Teal.
Yeah,
Anything about
Teal's
Kyle
good.
Teal? Okay.
Teal's good. Yeah, I really liked him. He's a really good catcher defensively, and he had some pop too. Yeah, he popped in some of the models I was looking at in terms of just like pure contact ability. So that might be the catcher of the future for them. But if they could hold on to like Christian Campbell and Marcelo Mayer, that'd be pretty impressive. I might be slightly bummed that the Cubs maybe didn't push in an offer, but maybe they did. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, I know. That's the whole thing about this, right? Is we have no idea what's actually being pushed out, what's not, and there's a whole lot of talks, and we're going to talk about the Kyle Tucker situation here in a second. Before we do, guys, just resetting the room here. We are live with Lance here in. I keep wanting to say Nashville, but it's in
In
Dallas.
Dallas. Yeah, yeah.
And we have the
Nashville would be
winter.
nicer, honestly.
Yeah, Lance did the winter meetings. Drop a comment. Let us know. Give me like a 1 out of 10. How confident are you that Kyle Tucker is going to be a Cub on opening day? How about that? Drop that in the comments. Make sure you like the video as well. And I mean, as we learn more about this Garrett Crochet deal too, if you guys are seeing anything out there in the Twitter sphere or anywhere, go ahead and let us know. But I don't see anything aside from the Kyle Teal mention yet. Oh, there is another one. White Sox. So here's from Ken Rosenthal. White Sox acquiring Garrett Crochet from the Red Sox for catcher Kyle Teal, outfielder Braden Montgomery, infielder Chase Meredith, and right-handed pitcher Wikelman Gonzalez. Any of those
Interesting.
names?
So Brady Montgomery is the interesting name there because that's a recent draft piece. So this maybe has some relation back to
Okay.
the Cubs and some of the Cam Smith rumors we've seen around Kyle Tucker specifically, where I, I I don't think the league likes when these prospects who were just drafted are immediately traded before they really get to pro ball. Montgomery, I think, was hurt when he was drafted. If he wasn't hurt, I believe he got hurt in the College World Series or in the playoffs for the College World Series. If he didn't get hurt, I think he would have gone a little higher in the draft. So those are big pieces. Teal and Montgomery, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised they kept Christian Campbell and Mayer, but this is the glut of having really loaded just position playing prospects or any prospects generally. Is you can trade two of them. You know, those are two of their top probably 5 to 6, 7 prospects, and they still have probably 3 top 100 guys. So this is maybe a template for the Cubs, right? Like you have Red Sox had, I think, a comparable amount of top 100 prospects to the Cubs, depending on what list you looked at, whether it's Baseball America, Pipeline, etc. And they just shipped off probably 2 of those guys, and they're still going to hang around as like one of the better orgs in baseball from a prospect standpoint.
So, the Cubs we had heard that they were discussing with the White Sox. So obviously the Garrett Crochet thing is not going to work out. But I got to imagine, before we get to the Kyle Tucker stuff, I got to imagine that there's still some sort of conversation out there about a trade for maybe not a Garrett Crochet type, but I got to imagine there's still a starting pitcher that Jed is trying to wrangle in. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think my read after being here for a couple of days is that I don't really think there's going to be any more free agent signings from the Cubs. If they are, they're going to be really low dollar, and they're probably going to be relievers. There's been names floated on that. I'm sure you can hop online and see. I'd love if I got Kyle Finney, and let's see if that actually gets done. Therefore, if you're trying to upgrade the 2025 team, you have to do it through trade. So then it becomes a matter of like, who? This is why we've seen the Kyle Tucker rumors. That makes a lot of sense. But the names floated there, Paredes and Suzuki, probably plus another guy. And it's like, do they like that price? Do they want less, et cetera? Do Suzuki's no trade actually going to push him there? Like, that's a wrinkle I haven't really heard too much reporting on. We don't really know what teams he's actually interested in going to. He'd probably mash in, is that Minute Maid? Or it's called like Daikin Park now, right?
I don't even
but
know
yeah, they have short left field. Like, that's, that would be lovely for Suzuki pumping balls into the Crawford boxes. But I don't know, if he doesn't want to go there, then none of this matters, right? But I think, like, you saw JP Morosi talk about Luzardo being available. That's a really interesting name that I imagine the Cubs are at least circling the waters on, just because I think Bendix is in an area where, they're in a rebuild. They're not probably going to win. They're still hiring a bunch of staff, from my understanding, after Dan Mosco's former assistant pitching coach for the Cubs jumped over to that organization. Sad day. Yeah, I really liked him. But Casey Jacobson, who they pushed into that role, I think is going to crush it. He's also a really good dude. He's one of their coordinators on the baseball sciences side. So yeah, if I had to guess, there's probably another trade coming. My guess, I guess right now would be Luzardo. We'll see if there's any other things that pop. Luzardo would be much cheaper than a Crochet, for example, because there's been some injuries there, et cetera. He's a fun pitcher, but the risk there is substantially higher than Crochet, who's a top 3 pitcher in baseball next year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, and it's funny, right? We keep on hearing about all these lefties. Like, we can't get enough lefties in this rotation.
I know, we talk about a lot.
But Luzardo, I mean, according to Baseball Reference, 4-WAR player in 2023, has his injuries in 24, but 3.58 ERA in 23, 3.32 in 22. I mean, and 178 innings is where he was at in 23. But like you said, a lot of injuries before that haven't really allowed him to have a full season outside of that. So that'd be an interesting one for sure. What else are you hearing over there? It sounds like a trade. So are you hearing any other rumblings besides the Kyle Tucker stuff, which we'll get to here in a second?
I mean, Tucker and some kind of pitcher, it makes sense to go from. I'm fascinated to see if the Cubs actually made an offer, or if they are allowed to counter off what the Red Sox put together there, because you could almost come up with a correlation. Like, you look at that trade, like, okay, there's a pitcher there. I'm not exactly sure who would have happened for the Cubs, maybe like Brody McCullers or something like that. Right. The catcher part is interesting because Teal's going to stick behind the plate most likely. So if the Cubs say offered by Ballesteros, Cam Smith, who's an equivalent, I would say, to Braden Montgomery, and then maybe another piece alongside Ballesteros, if they're looking at that trade, if you think Kyle Teal sticks behind the plate, then his value is much higher than a Ballesteros. So maybe it was Ballesteros, Cam Smith, and another piece. I'm not actually saying this is what was proposed, but I'm trying to look at that Red Sox offer and be like, well, what is the Cubs offer to Crochet based on that template? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. It's an interesting combination. And I think now the move is like, okay, that's the Crochet price. So then Luzardo price and all these other guys must be lower in terms of just who they're going to actually give up. So I mean, I want Tucker. I'm sure everybody in Cubs fandom wants Tucker. Like, that dude is unbelievable. Really good player. You'd love to see him extended too. If not, you have a couple years of control on him. It's just a matter of whether you want to give up what's been rumored from Heyman of Paredes, Suzuki, and probably another piece or two. I would imagine like a Ryan Presley or something like that probably comes back to the Cubs in that trade as well. It's probably just not as straight for Kyle Tucker. But that would, like, you want to talk about like 2025 being concerned on the dollar side of not, having a lot of money to spend. You want to upgrade your team. The best way to do this is through Kyle Tucker now that Crochet is off the market.
Well, and I think you just nailed it on the head, especially with Jed being in a contract year. Like, he has to do something. And I think we all didn't have exactly the optimism that he would do anything, but I just really felt like this is a year that he has to do something. And this would be the year, or this would be the move that would be like, okay, he's got some juice left in him. And so, you kind of talked about Tucker and what it sounds like we're gonna need to give up for him, but I'll bring up baseball trade values. In the meantime, you're hearing what over there about Tucker?
I'm hearing the price track is going to be crazy, right? It's going to revolve around two major league pieces. This is also the problem which you run into is like sometimes the trade partner you're looking at from the Cubs perspective is not one that's willing to take like non-major league ready guys. So you think of the Cubs and you go, okay, you have all these top 100 prospects, package a couple of them together and get a good piece. So in theory, like everyone's coming up with these trades around Kyle Tucker that are like all prospect driven. The reality is on a team like the Astros, like they're not rebuilding, you know, like they're kind of just consolidating talent because maybe they don't think they're going to extend Tucker, so they want something for him. So they want major league talent that can contribute right now. So if you pick up a Paredes and Suzuki, you're probably effectively replacing the Kyle Tucker production. You're just doing it in two players instead of one. A couple more control on those guys. Like we'll see how the money shakes out, et cetera. So it's tough, I think, a lot of times for us to look at the Cubs prospect capital and look at them and go, okay, let's trade four of those guys for one major league piece. There's just so few times that actually fits because the team that's usually giving up the piece is, in this case with Tucker, a team that is competitive. Whereas, say, the White Sox, you know, they'll take three prospects because they know they're not going to do anything this coming season. So I just think it's tough. Like I'd love to trade for the top 10 prospects too and get back a major league piece like Kyle Tucker. It's not what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot more than that, as we're seeing.
Well, and just to your point, can you see my screen, Lance?
I got you. I'm gonna zoom in a little.
So we got baseball trade values up, right? I mean, you know, I'm looking at what we're talking about with the Seiya, Suzuki, and Isak Paredes for Kyle Tucker, and it looks like a pretty good straight up deal if you look at just the baseball trade values. But to your point, like, do you think that the Astros, given how bad their farm system is, are not going to also want some guys like you mentioned, Cam Smith? So what is the likelihood that they're okay with just, hey, let's just replace Kyle Tucker with a not as good outfielder and a guy who's coming off a terrible year at third base, even though he was an all-star, he was horrible in the second half. What are the chances that that actually goes through versus like, hey, we want Matt Shaw or we want Cam Smith?
Yeah, I mean, I think the probability Cam Smith's trade is very low. Primarily because the Cubs are an incredibly model-driven team, and he popped in the model on the draft side. And that's why they took him. And I think that's already a pretty good pick relative to his price compared to maybe some of the guys that went in front of him. He looks great. Like I'm pretty confident in him as a prospect. I'm not exactly sure what trade value he's going to say there, but it's just tough. It's tough to trade these guys right after the draft, partially because I mentioned this with Crochet, but I don't think the league loves it when you draft a guy and immediately trade them, which is what happened with Braden Montgomery and the Red Sox going to the White Sox, you know? So it's an odd situation. Like, I don't think they would ask for Cam Smith. Maybe they would ask for Cam Smith. If I'm the Astros, I'm asking for Cam Smith. As to whether the Cubs would actually include him, probably low probability. So then you backtrack and like, okay, is it Seiya, Isak and Triantos for Tucker and Presley? Like, is that structure work? You know, like Triantos is not the prospect Cam Smith is, you know, weirder on the defensive side. Like, that's something that I would maybe sneak back into, where the Cubs are probably going to want a reliever back, because I'm not exactly sure if they're now going to want to spend on like a Finnegan or Hobie Milner or one of these other guys in that bucket. That's interesting. But
yeah,
well, this feels like it would be like a 2 for 3 or something along those lines, where a reliever comes back to the Cubs.
So you said Presley and Tucker, and then the Cubs on would be who?
Isak, and throw like Triantos in or something.
Okay, with Seiya as well, or no?
Yeah, with Seiya. So Seiya, Isak, Triantos.
Yeah, I think baseball trade values is going to tell us that we're giving away too much. I think they've really overvalued Isak here, though. I mean, he's got 28.8.
Trade values has its flaws, but it's better than nothing.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, with that plus then Triantos.
Yeah, what are they valuing Triantos as is a good question.
13.7. So
that seems high.
Seems high to me.
No offense, James. Love you.
You've got Cam Smith at 17. Triantos to me should be more like, I mean, I guess just because he's higher up on the prospect list, but he's in the system for a while. So, I mean, yeah, it shows on baseball trade values that's a 43.7 and Cubs are getting 30. But I think this all, especially if we start talking about the prospects, right? We got to see some sort of glass now trade where it's like, hey, there needs to be an extension. Like, we're giving away the future. So if he's not willing to extend, then we're not willing to give away the future. Now, Seiya and Isak, I don't know. Maybe that would be a different situation. Maybe you say there, okay, no, it's fine. You know, those are major league players that we're not sure how long they're going to be here anyway. So go ahead and send them out. But if you're going to give away a Cam Smith, a Matt Shaw, a James Triantos, don't you want to get an extension in return?
I agree. And I mean, I think the probability of that is maybe higher. I don't believe Tucker's a Boris guy. I think he's with Excel. So maybe there's some more flexibility there for them to entertain like a long-term deal immediately when he signs. Or I imagine if that trade were to get to the, into the red zone, to use a metaphor, that there would be some conversation between the Cubs and Tucker's camp as to the willingness to sign an extension. I doubt he would wait it out. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that it's a really good, interesting question, but that's how I'm coming at it from. Like, if I was in the front office, I would be playing around with those thoughts of like, okay, if we get this as a 20-yard line, we're about to punch it in. Like, you got to know whether you got to give me like a 1 to 10 on Tucker's ability to willingness to sign an extension in the next month, and like, where's our number? How far off were we, et cetera. And, that's a risk. Like, obviously, like it was like the Lindor thing, right? Like they weren't entirely sure if they were going to sign him to extension, although maybe it was, they had high probability on it for some example. But I do think like looking at that trade values thing, like it seems like the Cubs are giving up a lot there, but the value for me on that between Paredes and Tucker is way too close. Like the ability to get a player like Tucker who can post 6-7 WAR in a season, and Paredes is not going to post 6-7 WAR in a season. It's not going to happen because he's not a good defender. So like we run into this a little with like the Soto signing where we don't have a great value comparison for players that are able to post 6, 7, 8 WAR seasons. Because these don't hit the market a lot, especially at 26 years old, or I'm not sure. There's Tucker like 28 or something, probably in there. 26, 28 in that window.
Yeah, let me take a look. He is 20. Oh, of course, it's not showing. Did Baseball Reference just change how they do things? Oh, there we go. More bio. He's 27. He's about to turn 28. Yeah.
28. So he'll be playing his age 28 season. We just don't have a lot of data and information on those guys hitting the market. Like, what is the relative value? Like, it's hard to do. So, like, I get Paredes has more control there, but I think it's okay to pay a little bit extra for a guy who can post 6, 7, 8 WAR, where you're not going to get that. It's hard to develop that alone, and Tucker can do that. So I'm cool giving up what trade value says is like 13 units over whatever they say, 30% more than you should give up. This Tucker has the potential to be an elite player. Like you're producing the value of 2 players in one individual player slot, and you can backfill because you have guys like Shaw to play third or whatever. Like there's ways around that. So I mean, if that trade was on the table for me right now, I would take it. I don't know if you would.
So and John Heyman just tweeted this out. 2 things here. About an hour ago, he said Astros want Rookie of the Year Luis Gil, however you say that, in a package with superstar outfielder Kyle Tucker. This is the Yankees. The discussion with the Cubs is, as we already talked about, Seiya and Isak, but then he just retweeted and he said, star outfielder Tucker's plan for obvious reasons is said to become a free agent in a year. So an acquiring team won't be likely to be able to extend him. He surely saw how the market treated Soto, and some metrics are comparable. So
there you go. So then now the probability, I didn't see that tweet. The probability is happening, I think, is very low now. I just don't see this happening. Like that just seems crazy. Like, you're not going to give up Suzuki and Isak for Tucker, unfortunately, especially if he's going to hit the open market, where the Cubs historically have not been willing to match other competitive offers. So unless all of a sudden you're now willing to spend $300 million, $350 million on Kyle Tucker, then, that's got to probably come from ownership down, where it's like, we're cool with doing that. So like, we're willing to let you pull the trigger on 2 guys we have control over who are good hitters. So I didn't see that, but damn.
For that reason, like, okay, if you look at the Astros, their system, their number 1 prospect, which by the way is only number 89 on the top 100, is an outfielder.
Yeah.
So it just feels to me like, okay, there has to be an outfielder in return in some way, right? Whether it's going to be Casey, Alcantara, or Suzuki or Bellinger, there has to be an outfielder. So why wouldn't, if we're going to talk about, well, he's not going to be willing to sign an extension, why wouldn't it be, okay, well then Bellinger, you get one outfielder for another. But also, as I'm saying that out loud, I don't know that the Astros are trying to do that. I don't think they're trying to lock down a bunch, unless the Cubs can take over and call it, 15 of that. Then why not just do a Bellinger for a Tucker and throw in, I don't know, like a top 30 infielder or something like that, just for the heck of it. What are your thoughts on that? I don't think like it.
No. I mean, I think in that point they would probably just pivot to get the years of control on Gil, right? Like if that's what they're going to do. I think that's the problem too, is like you got to outlever the Yankees to some extent, who are in this spot where they probably have to overpay a little bit to make up for what they missed in Soto, although they got freed. They'll probably get a Bregman or a Walker. I think that makes a lot of sense for them from like team construction standpoint, the Yankees. But yeah, I mean, if the Cubs' best offer is Bellinger, then if I'm the Astros, I just go back to the Yanks and go, okay, we'll take Heel and I don't know, give us another prospect. Like Spencer Jones, there was the top 100 prospect. He's kind of I don't want to say he's damaged goods now, but he regressed a little this most recent year. So will the Yankees be willing to give him up alongside Heel? Like if the Astros are confident they're not going to extend Tucker, then that feels like a smash for the Astros. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if the best the Cubs are going to do is Bellinger, then I just think he's a Yankee or he's an Astro, which is unfortunate. Just kind of like my read on the situation.
Well, I hope not. I guess at the end of the day, like a lot of this also just depends on if Seiya is going to allow for a trade. Like I'm really surprised how much that dialed up the last couple of days. And one thing that I don't think is being talked about enough is how this potentially hurts the Sasaki situation, because it doesn't seem like, even if Seiya stays in Chicago, it doesn't seem like he's too happy about how things are going down right now, which is disappointing from a fan's perspective. I think and a few people, in fact, I know DJ Wade, Matthew Wade is on here in the comments right now, and he was talking to me on YouTube yesterday about, it's a different culture. He's not upset that he's not going to play outfield. It's just that that's a sign of disrespect. And it's like, okay, I get that, but also like play better in the outfield then.
It's a weird spot. Yeah.
And so it seems like this could create some tensions between Seiya, which then to me, Sasaki goes, well, look how they're treating Seiya. I don't want to go to that team either. I don't know. Is that how you read it?
I don't know if that's how I read it. Like Sasaki's a tough one to read, obviously. Like the Wolf comments I thought were pretty good. I thought he gave a pretty good presser yesterday. I was watching some of that, and like I thought his comments were good. Like he wasn't as closed off as Boris. Like I thought he was pretty open, gave some good nuggets and such. I really think, I mean, from his read, like Sasaki seems to just be looking for a team that is willing to be really good at pitching development and land him soft on the media side. So I think that eliminates a team like the Dodgers, probably eliminates big markets like the Yankees and Mets. I mean, if that's true, right? Like where we gonna play some 1 to 10 on the truth serum there for that. I think the Cubs are in it. My understanding is that Sasaki is starting to take meetings next week. I don't exactly know who those teams are. I don't know how many teams, but I from what Wolf implied and some talking to some other people, it seems like there was, you like written submission video stuff this week, and then that'll progress more to the stage of like formal meetings. And I'm fascinated to see like what exactly happens in those. Because in those meetings, that's my understanding where like you're pitching him on what you're going to do with him from the development side. And that probably is one of the biggest levers to pull, I would imagine, is which of those presentations he likes the most. From a how do you make me better standpoint, and then you lay out how you're going to do it in a 15-minute conversation or video or PowerPoint slides or whatever teams do. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to get some momentum on Sasaki. I don't think his decision is made there. I don't know if there's been any reporting on that, but maybe it is in his head. But if he's taking meetings with multiple teams, then it seems to me like there's still a chance that a team could hop in late and really woo him, and next thing you know, that's it.
He could be doing the Ohtani thing and just, letting them bring out, the smorgasbord for him just so he can enjoy it, even though he's already made a decision internally with the Dodgers. I want to ask just from like, well, actually, I want to make a point. There's one thing that I don't like about this Kyle Tucker talk. You want to know what it is?
Yeah.
It's the fact that there is Kyle Tucker talk, because when in the world have we heard Jed go out and get into trade rumors and then the trade actually happens? It doesn't happen. It's all these trades that come up with him. It's like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Didn't see Craig Counsell getting signed. There was no rumors really about, and I know it's not official yet, but Carson Kelly, right? There was no rumors about that. There was no rumors about Shota. There was a few rumors about Shota, but there's nothing about Michael Busch and Isaac Paredes. Like all these trades that seem to happen always seem like there's like no rumors and there's no legs growing. Whereas Kyle Tucker, we're just getting our hopes up, and then the Yankees are going to come in and get him. That's what it feels like, is that we never win these rumor mill hot stove kind of trades.
Yeah, I mean, it stinks. I totally understand where you're coming from. I do, you heard my spiel last week on it. Like, I do think a lot of these rumor mill things are so funny because, like, these teams are all having conversations about a variety of things. Like, it's crazy if the GM doesn't pick up a phone on Kyle Tucker if they think they have a package to present. It's whether it gets reported and aggregated is another story. So the Cubs are just in a weird spot where, like, again, I don't think they're going to spend more money. material amount of more money. Therefore, it has to be through trade. So anytime you hear like a Tucker might be available, like it makes a lot of sense for the Cubs to loop into that. Because if that's the only way they're going to improve the team, then like that is their avenue. You pick the player and you figure out whether there's a match. So I still feel like there's something coming. I can't guess what. If I had to guess, I would guess Luzardo, but I don't know. I was hoping it was Crochet. That was the white whale for me. I mean, I loved him. I think
You were
I
calling it
think
a
he's like
couple
one of
months
the
ago.
best pitchers in baseball. So
Yeah,
the Red Sox got a gem there.
We're getting ready to do some Q&A with Lance, so we'll start posting your questions. Make sure you put them in the comments. Again, Lance is live over at the winter meetings in Dallas, so he's been hearing and seeing things. I guess, one thing that I think I'm wondering about is, do you think that the relief market right now is, you said that you don't see the Cubs going the free agent route for many more guys. Do you think that there's a relief pitcher out there that they could trade for?
Relief pitcher trade, I actually haven't thought about too much. That's an interesting question. I was thinking more on like the low dollar value reliever side, like a Finnegan or something along those lines. You probably have to pay a couple mil to. A Hobie Milner's relationship with Counsell in the past, lefty would help the pen. Minter has been floated, like that's another one. Like in that realm where
Romero got.
Yeah. I mean,
$8.5 million.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. That's the Phillies. That seems like Dombrowski just taking his guy and then maybe seeing some development plan there with him and not being too concerned with the elbow stuff from last year. So I like Jordan Romano a lot. So I was that's a fun one. It's a reclamation project, and the Cubs had some success with Julian Merriweather from the same organization. They're going to try to have some success with Nate Pearson. So there was obviously some relationship there in terms of just like general interest. I just don't know whether the Cubs wanted to spend that money. So therefore, if the Cubs offered $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, I don't know, with maybe a 1-in-1, give a player option to opt out. If he pitches really well, he could go back into the market. The Phillies were just like, we'll give you 1 year for 8 or 7.5, whatever. And that's it. That's how that stuff works. He's not going to take 50% less money to go to the Cubs when he has a championship caliber team in the Phillies presenting him something.
It's just, and I retweeted it yesterday, but I just feel like the pitching market, mainly from starting pitchers, it's just getting out of control right now.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Evaldi, 3 years, 25 per year. Like,
and he got multiple offers for that, which was reported.
No, like
it's crazy.
It's like, that seemed to me like it was gonna be a 1 or 2 year deal max, and maybe 20 million, but 25 for 3 years. And I mean, I don't even know how old he's going to be when that ends, but I don't see that going well.
Yeah, I think it'll be like 36, 37. I mean, I agree with you. I just think, we come in with this assumption that like the dollar per win ratio is around 10. I think that's what it's been for the last couple of years, at least. And this market in particular, I think it's kind of showed us that perhaps teams are thinking of it more like 11 to 12 million per win. And I think we maybe have to just mentally adjust a little bit. Like if all these pitchers are getting that price tag, then yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to take to get any of these guys, especially in a competitive market where you have like the Athletics throwing around money. That's relatively unexpected. I know they're going to have to overpay because no one's going to want to go play there in Sacramento for 3 years or whatever. But again, if that's your best offer by $12 million, I think $12 million is probably worth sucking it up and playing in Sacramento. So that's easy for me to say.
Yeah, well, it's not our money, right? So
exactly.
We don't have to worry about it. All right, let's get to Q&A with Lance now. There's a lot of things we could be asking right now. So just go ahead and start firing them away in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and just find the most recent one, and then I'll do some digging here. I did like this comment from Steven, just really quick. All this news about Crochet,
That's
and
good.
he's just changing the color of his socks.
Clever.
Yes. All right. I see a lot of comments. I don't see a lot of questions. So drop your questions down, guys. Here we go. Let's step back. Why are we talking about trading Seiya? So yeah, I mean, that is a good question. So from found things I found, say, let's step back. Why are we talking about trading Seiya? Solid player and an affordable deal. I mean, it's a very good question.
Purely because they don't have a lot of money to spend. So if you want financial flexibility, you have to trade someone who's over probably $20 million on the team. You're not going to do that with Swanson. So you got to do it through Bellinger or Sale. I think that's literally the answer. I don't really know if there's any other reason to expand on it. If they want to stay put in where they are and they pick up another reliever or two and go right up against whatever their budget is, I just don't, from my understanding, I just don't see them pushing really hard on big dollar free agents right now. So if you want to have flexibility and have the ability to play around and get creative, then you have to open up money. And the way to do that is through Bellinger, which is way more likely, in my opinion, or Seiya.
Yeah, and again, I think we talked about it last time, but like Seiya, okay, yes, he's your best hitter. yes, it would be great to see both Tucker and Seiya in the same lineup.
Oh yeah.
But really, at this point, the Cubs have determined he's one-dimensional. He's a hitter. He's not. If he's playing the field, he's a liability. Or if he's not playing the field, then he's not happy. Bellinger, on the other hand, yeah, it's a much bigger deal. But man, just the versatility and the options that you get from, say, Bush gets injured, say, Casey isn't doing too well in right field, and now Bellinger can go in there in right field instead of being a DH or being a first baseman, right? There's just so many different ways that you can move around with that, which is why it's just a little bit disappointing that Jed makes this contract and then is upset that Bellinger opted back in. Like, you made the contract in a way that you basically wanted him to not do so hot the first year back, and now you're mad that it worked out that way. It's goofy to me.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like I don't know, I also don't know how much of it is really Jed. Like I wonder how much of it is above that. Like
Sure.
it's just a weird situation. Like I don't know. Like this team would be better if you went after Fried. It would be better if you went after Burns. I get those dollars are really, really high. So the alternative is just to hang around the middle as they have and try to build an 86 win team that will win anywhere from 78 to 94. That's like
You're
that's
trying to
your
build
window.
90-win teams here, Lance.
I know. That's it. Yeah, those teams win 83 games a lot of the time. So it's unfortunate.
Next question is from Bears Fan Man. Could Tucker be saying that just to get a top contract now? What he's referring to, obviously, is wanting to hit free agency next year. It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Are you? So the question is like, is he
saying, "Oh, I want to hit free agency next year because I saw what happened with Soto, so I'm not going to sign an extension now"? Is that like a chip for him to be like, "Oh, well, if they're going to give me an extension, the money better be big, right?"
Yeah, yeah. I think that's totally fair. That's exactly probably what he's doing, and it's probably again agency driven where they're not dumb. Like they realize that dude is really good. A lot of people metrically believe he's probably one of the best outfielders in baseball. He's at least probably top 10. He's probably top 5. It's coming off a tough year. So you got to look maybe in the aggregate of the last couple. We often have short-term memory with this stuff. Like that dude was unbelievable from 21 to 23, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, he's probably worth close to 350 to 400 million. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the dollar and AAV would average out to, but like probably 35 to 40 a year, if we just saw Soto get 51, like that feels good. You want to do that for 6-7 years? There you go. That's your money, right? I don't know the multiplication in my head there quick, but what was 35 to 21? Close to 300 million. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Interesting note here. Patrick just told us, and this was tweeted out by you guys, Lance. Marquis just said the Cubs have selected third baseman Gage Workman in the Rule 5 draft from the Tigers. Workman hit 18 runs in Double-A last year.
Tigers guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I recognize that name. For some reason, I like know it. I was talking to someone about him. He came up in conversation. I can't say I have much info there. Aside from that, I'll have to take a look at some data and stuff. But that's an interesting one. So third baseman Workman. That was major league phase of the Rule 5.
I don't know. It's
okay.
The tweet was that I just read was from you guys, and it said in the Rule 5 draft from the Tigers.
Okay, cool. I got to see if that's major league phase. Because that major league phase, then there's your 40th man spot, or that's your. He's got to stay on the 26. Excuse me, for the entire year. So
right.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
What's the difference there? I'm not familiar with that. You're saying there's one phase where they have to be on the 26th, and the other they don't have to be.
There's a minor league phase and a major league phase. Basically, the major league phase is the one that most people care about. The minor league one is really just like sending around different minor leaguers that have been in the minors for too long, essentially. So I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't look into anything on the position player side of the Rule 5, so I don't know whether that was major league phase or minor league phase. But if someone in the comment has that, let me know. I'm curious.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments if you got that. But pretty good numbers this last year. I'm looking 842 OPS and Double-A. He's 25 years old, so that would be an interesting one to make sure that you have a spot on the roster for a 26-year-old or 25-year-old going into age 26 who doesn't have any AAA experience. That would be interesting.
It would be interesting, yeah. If it's minor league level, if it's minor league free agent, or excuse me, Rule 5, then much less pressure. Like I think he would just end up on the AAA roster. He doesn't have to stay on anything in terms of I believe like 26 man, etc. So
yeah. I'm not seeing major. It was major league phase, says Jeffrey Godkey. So
wow, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there you go. There's your he's gonna have to hang on the 26. Now, guys do get returned a lot. They get returned a lot. So perhaps this is like a protection thing of like, we
Okay.
want him on the roster. And then when we get to camp, we just send him back for whatever, this is like $50,000 or whatever. That does happen a lot. If people remember a year or two ago, Chris Clark, some play pitcher for the Cubs, who's kind of started and
Oh yeah.
relieved, was selected by the Mariners in the major league phase. He went to the Mariners, and then in spring training, they offered him back, and the Cubs took him back. So it could just be like a leverage play from the Cubs to have him for the next 3 months. And now he's 40-man guy and 26-man roster, and kind of go from there. So I don't know him too much as a prospect, so I can't offer too much more info. But yeah,
I'm
29
gonna just
prospect
read
right here
between
is
the
interesting.
lines. I'm gonna just read between the lines. This means that we just shipped off Isak Brady's for Kyle Tucker, just straight up.
That would be great. Let's do it. Sign it.
Let's see here. Any other questions, guys? We've got Lance here for another 5 minutes or so. Let's see. Okay, here's another one from Found Things I found. If they don't get moved, are Bellinger and Seiya and Nico now going to be salty and affect the chemistry? I mean, is that really a thing? I mean, I think everyone kind of knows like their names are going to be tossed around in trade talks. It's just about whether it gets to the media or not, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good question. I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit overblown to me. I think when this stuff happens, like I imagine front offices and elsewhere are like talking to these guys, have communication, and then are like, hey man, like here's the actual probability this might happen. The Seiya stuff does seem a little odd where it like came out and Wolf commented on it and like that spiraled a bit. But like the Bellinger stuff, like all the stuff you've heard from Boris is like he loves Chicago, and I don't think there's any reason that he doesn't love Chicago. And like if he goes elsewhere, it's going to be to a competitive team. And Nico, like I feel like Nico was a name that was thrown on so much, but I don't know. Like I have teams requested medicals on him. Like I'm curious, kind of see where he is in his rehab and stuff, and like how much that'll actually affect him. And that also comes back to the fact of like, okay, if he's affected, then the actual impact of him as a player, might be less for a team, and then the Cubs are not willing to give up said player because you're not valuing him properly. And it's like injury stuff can be really tough to kind of trade around. And from my not experience, but like what I've seen in the past of teams is not being willing to ship out guys. So it's all about matching value or almost mismatching value. One org has a certain value on a guy, the other org has this value, and then you compound a few of those. Next thing you know, you have a trade. But Nico in particular is going to be tough because the Cubs are probably going to value him without the injury or say he's fine. So he's a 4 or 5 WAR player, mostly driven through defense. Another team's like, we view him as like a 3.5, 3, because like we're a little worried potentially that the injury thing could pop back up or it affects him more this season than you think. And like, I don't know, it's probably not going to get done. There's a lot of like the Mariners Nico talk, but I don't know. I think the prices on the Mariners pitchers is so high that I don't foresee any of that stuff happening. And I feel like we haven't heard about that all week to the point where it's probably unlikely. So,
well, let's just have a little bit of fun for a second here and think about this, Lance. Kyle Tucker, right? 30 stolen bases in 2023. His last full season this year in 2024 had some injuries, but still had 11 stolen bases. Think about Nico, Tucker, and PCA in the same lineup. I mean, this team might be top 3 in stolen bases for the year.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That's generally not a way that, I mean, I guess the Brewers had some speedy guys like Churio. I'm trying to think how the Brewers have been constructed. Churio wasn't there with Counsell, I guess, per se, but yeah, it's interesting. Like they drafted Mitchell too. He steals some bags. It's an interesting way. I mean, this team is trying to be built around pitching and defense. So I guess you add the stolen base element, and it's like OBP stolen base pitching defense. Like it's an interesting way to win. It's not maybe the most exciting way to win, in my opinion. Like I prefer the homer ball and strikeouts and stuff. But hey, if it gets you 90 wins, then who cares? Who cares how it's done, man? You're in the playoffs. You're in the playoffs. Yeah, tongue in cheek there.
There you go. Stephen Dunn. Do you feel like the way the Cubs are treating Bellinger after taking his opt-in is going to turn free agents away because they don't want to be treated the same?
No, I don't think so. I mean, for the most part, like the Cubs have a very sharp advantage on the player side where like you have a lot of like 9 to 5 days, so to speak, where it's like you have a 120, like you're out on a Friday night or a Saturday night at, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Like it's a very subtle bargaining chip that I've heard from like some other players is like actually pretty important.
Oh, yeah.
Especially guys with families to be able to like say goodnight to your kids on Friday and Saturday night, being the Cubs organization. So like they have so many other chips. It's a good organization. They draw really well. It's trying to be a competitive team. The division is competitive. It's not like the AL East. Like I don't think something like this is going to deter a team from coming to Chicago. I just don't see that.
I met Mark DeRosa at the winter meetings last year, And we talked for all of 45 seconds. And I just asked him, like, well, where was your favorite place to play? And he was like, it was Chicago.
Yeah.
And it was the exact reason you just said. He's like, I got to have family life during the season. Like,
Yeah,
no
it's
other
very
place
rare.
would do that. So, got a couple more questions here. One from DJ Way. New York Yankees have expressed a need for a first baseman and a shortstop. Wouldn't a Bellinger-Horner trade be just what they want? What kind of return would you expect for that kind of move?
Yeah, do they need a shortstop? Isn't Volpe really good? They need first base, third base, don't they?
Yeah.
Unless they want to move Volpe to third.
Did he win another Gold Glove, or was he just a finalist?
I don't know off the top of my head, honestly. I didn't pay too much attention to Gold Gloves.
Yeah, they're
I'm pretty
fake.
sure he was really a shortstop, though. So I don't think they really need a shortstop. They probably need more first base third, where that's like Oswaldo Cabrera and Ben Rice. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. My perception of the Yankees is they had so much money tied up in Soto that like they now have the ability to spend that money elsewhere. So, are you going to take Nico and Belly for prospects? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's like they have some pitching prospects that are a lot of them are hurt. Chase Hampton I liked a lot, but he went down with a weird shoulder injury. Will Warren is kind of an interesting dude. He's like sinker slider, like a Michael King prototype, but he's not that good yet. Spencer Jones, I mentioned earlier, is like kind of this damaged goods outfielder that people have kind of soured on slightly, but still has like pretty huge power and I'd say upside. Like, I don't know, maybe you get something along those lines, but again, like the Bellinger side, because that deal is so disadvantageous to the Cubs, it's a lot of money, and he has the opt-in potential. Like, you're not going to get a lot back for him. So, if this trade happened, it'd probably be pretty underwhelming from my perspective in terms of what they get back. Maybe it's a minor league pitcher and something else. It'd be cool if it's Spencer Jones. I just don't think it's going to be Spencer Jones because they already have a glut of outfielders. So, I just see the Yankees moving more towards like a Christian Walker, Bregman, something in that side where they have to shift some of that Soto money now to first base, third base. And I don't think they're going to do that via trade, but I get where you're coming from, DJ, on this one.
And then someone did just say, hey, if we don't want Bellinger and Horner, then why would other teams and why would they get a big return? I think it just goes back to what you said, right? It's not that
they don't like Bellinger. Yeah.
Players. It's just that if you have all these restrictions within the lineup and you don't have a lot of money, what just happened to the camera?
Lost
that
it.
That was weird. 1 second.
You're good. You're back.
Yeah, on the wrong camera. That's weird. Okay, we'll just run with it. It's just there's not much flexibility in terms of the money that's available, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quote air quotes, because I got crap for that yesterday on a reel where I said that the Cubs don't have money. They have money. It's just money that's not available. You gotta get rid of some salary to find some ways to fit other players in. So the next question, I like this one. Trevor, and we'll end with this one.
Yeah.
Walker via free agency or Luis Castillo via a trade? What do you prefer?
I'll take Castillo for sure. But it's also because I just like him more as a pitcher. It's also probably more viable for the Cubs to make that trade again, because I don't think they're going to spend probably $18 million on Walker, a little bit more with like a 1-in-1 where he has the ability to opt out, or maybe he wants a multi-year. Just don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, Walker is interesting too. I mean, I talked to Nick Pollock from Pitcher Listed, and Ball Sport. We had like a good pitching conversation yesterday on a live, and we were talking about Walker in particular, and like what you do with him and him versus like a Flaherty type, which do you prefer at similar dollar value, et cetera. So he's interesting. There's some changes that probably got to go on there. He was really good in the postseason. Is that fastball he flashed in the postseason, which you're going to see all of next year? I think that's unlikely. So then, okay, let's see what happens in terms of going from the perspective of, if that doesn't happen, going like sinker cutter, make him a sinker cutter guy versus righties as opposed to four seam. So Buehler is like a project more so, I would say, but he's a guy that obviously wants to kind of recreate his own value. So I'll take Castillo there.
Okay. I've got one more question for you, but before I do, guys, if you are in the room right now and you have not liked this video, please like it. And if you're not subscribed, why not just hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. At what year? No, I won't pigeonhole you there. Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
Will the Mets regret this signing of Juan Soto and the value and the dollar numbers? And if so, at what year of year 15 in the contract? At what year will they start regretting it?
I don't think they're going to regret the contract, actually. Maybe that's a hot take. Yeah, I think that he's going to produce so much value over the next 5-6 years. It's probably not going to matter. You get one championship. You fly one flag. Excuse me. That's worth the contract for the most part. Even if it becomes hugely cumbersome when he's 33 to 38 and he's just an OBP DH-ish kind of guy. But I do think discipline like this ages pretty well. So I think there's paths to him late career being pretty valuable from the offensive standpoint. Even if the defense isn't great in the outfield, he eventually becomes like a first base DH type. They're going to milk him for as long as they can in the outfield. So I don't think they're going to regret it. Maybe that's crazy to say. Some national TV revenue comes up, I think, in 28, 29. We'll see if the luxury tax jumps more. Maybe this dollar doesn't look as strong, 51 million. It's someone in the next 5 years is probably going to break that on a per year basis, AAV basis. So perhaps a hot take, but I guess I'm in on the Soto deal. Maybe crazy to think, but what about you?
Bro, I go back and forth, to be honest. I'll tell you this: if the Cubs spent that much money, I probably would be finding a lot of ways to be like, "Are we sure that was the right contract?"
Yeah,
that
the right use of that money. Yeah.
It would make me really nervous. Did you see? I think it was Aubrey Huff. Did you see him go off on Twitter about it?
Yeah, he's a goon.
I mean, man. He had some good points though, where it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, he's basically the Ted Williams of our generation. So yes, but he can't run. He can't play defense. There's a lot of tools that are missing there that you're like, well, if he ever stops hitting, at least he has this. Or if he ever stops running, at least he has the hit tool. And it's like, if you're just, it's kind of like Seiya, like what we're talking about with Seiya right now. If Seiya got this huge contract and he just started, he forgot how to catch a ball in the outfield, then you'd be like, well, crap, that was part of why we gave you the dollars. So like, is two tools, contact and slug, really worth $765 million? I mean, I go back and forth, man. I have a tough time getting a really strong opinion about that one.
It's tough. I get what you're saying. I guess I just think like those individual tools are probably the most important, and they're also like so elite above other players, and he has such an extended track record of being 60 to 70% above the average hitter that I do think it. Like, I don't know if I would like a well-rounded player that isn't as good of a hitter is just not going to get that money. So I don't know. I'll take the guy who's absolutely generational at a couple of those tools. I'm cool. Like, it doesn't matter if he can't run. That dude is like literally one of the best approach. He's makes some of the best swing decisions we've seen in the last like 10 years. It's like, that's more valuable to me than ability to run and field and all these other things. Like, it's cool to think of building your team around all these well-rounded players, but I don't know. I'd rather take the guy who's generational at a couple things. Maybe it's just me.
Now, rephrasing the question, it's your money. just mess. Just mess.
If it's my money, I mean, how much money do I have? What's my net worth? Am I Cohen? Am I,
Guys, we are going to end this thing with Lance. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate your time. I know that you are working your butt off over there at the winter meeting. So if you're not already following Lance, make sure to go follow his YouTube channel. Make sure you are checking out him on Twitter. Lance Brozdowski on everything. It's spelled out right there on your screen, just in case you don't know how to spell that. Brozdowski. Brozdowski. Lance, thanks, man.
Always good talking to you, dude. Take it easy. I'll see you soon.